How do you do? I am Skeptical Spectrum, and I am I forgot what I was going to say. I'm coming here to do the 30 and 30 videos, right? This is number 16, I think. And I, I see it's a challenge because it seems like I'm saying the same thing every day now. That's what it feels like. Now that happens to me every once in a while anyway, whether I'm doing vlogs or not, with a V. But By the way, when I'm going to give my talk today, it's going to be about compassion and how important it is. And not only that, that really it's the guide to. This sounds a little bit like religious, but it's not. It's the guide to everything in a way. I don't feel good, when I say that, like I just said. In fact, did I say it could lead to depression? When life gets monotonous, when you don't think anything's happening, when you don't think you have any power, you can get depressed. And there's a difference between diagnosable depressive like disorder and just being human and having depression sometimes. So, first thing I want to say to everybody out there is if you ever do get depressed, if you ever feel like you've been depressed for a month, but you're not sure if you have clinical depression, you can get yourself checked out. That's fine. But that's not my point. My point is that, just realize that you are part of humanity and you have the full menu of emotions, and some of them are going to be like sticky and they're going to stay around sometimes. In fact, I'll tell you, when I got my PhD a long time ago, I was so elated. And what happens when you're very elated? I think you lose all the joy juice. You use it all up. It's like your gasoline. Like your body can't just have these hormones and neurotransmitters constantly being produced while you're using them. They run out, and to some degree, and then it's like exhaustion, right? Fatigue and all that stuff, right? So depression is kind of like that, but it's kind of different. And so, I don't mean just, I don't, not just biologically, clinically, I just mean in general. Things like depression are kind of like, we might call different things depression depending on who you are. When you say you're happy, you might mean something different when this other person says I'm happy. When you say you're happy that you saw a particular movie, you might feel differently than when you say you're happy that you gave to charity or that you're happy that somebody kissed you. You know what I mean? So, we can use the same word to mean a lot of things. So I don't think I'm not trying to be like very precise about the word depression, but for me, when I do the same thing every day, it becomes kind of I mean, it can become kind of a drag. Now, the reason vlogging with a v and a g and an ng, is probably cool for me is because I would have been spitting out a lot of words to someone anyway, probably my wife, and then she would have had to kind of give me her words, and then I would have been wondering if she was interrupting me or if we were participating. And what I'm saying is, this is an opportunity for me to force myself to think about some things um, just off the top of my head. I actually made some notes here, though, so I am going to just launch right into compassion. Compassion, ashen, 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 ashen. Here begins the show. Compassion and enlightened self-interest, and compassion. My definition is when you feel feelings about other people's plight or joy. So when you're really happy for someone because they're having good things happen to them and they're really having that groovy thing happen and they love it, then you love it for them. You love them. You love life for the fact that they are feeling a certain way. And the same thing happens when there are problems out in the world that are harming people. You might feel it for your children. You might feel it for your spouse. You might feel it for your parents. You might feel it for your friends. But you will feel it for strangers. And for, like the quintessential stranger, I guess, would be like the person at the supermarket. If you think about it, if you really have an idea of compassion, which basically in a way says inside of everybody, there is someone just like me. And that someone just like me is wondering how their life is going and have they met the approved path for being a successful person? And how are people looking at them? and look at all the stuff that's going on in my life. I'm having trouble juggling all these things. I'm not sure I can do all these things. Am I meeting the mark? Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Why am I hurting? I'm hurting and I don't know why. My poor daughter, my poor son, my poor mother. That kind of thing. They're going around vulnerable, right? So one thing about compassion that I'm going to say that I didn't write in my notes because I made notes this time is that it's actually kind of a booster and a camaraderie builder and kind of shows that there's strength in numbers. But also, if you're doing that in your mind, which you probably are, I know I do, um, it's very different walking along the sidewalk, and seeing people when there's some compassion in you because you look at them and you go, oh gosh, I hope they're not going through something bad, but they might be. So you just kind of start to wish the best for them. And practice makes improvement, right? So over time, it can become a habit where you're looking at people and you realize that you're like on the same level, that you've got something going. Um, when you look at somebody who is obviously, suffering more than you in certain ways, because you can't guarantee someone's suffering all the time. Let's say a person on the street, I'm talking about homeless people right now. A homeless person, yeah, they're over there getting involuntary sunburn, trying to beg for food or money, trying to avoid getting bed sores and all these things. But every once in a while, the mind and body just produces positive feelings, on a sort of a random basis, depending on certain, I guess, signaling. But also, there's the chance that that person might, right at that moment, be experiencing a pretty good high off some drug or whatever. That doesn't mean they're not gonna pay for it later, of course. But the point is that don't like, I guess, make the compassionate assumption. Realize that everybody's just flesh and bone, and that and think of yourself as an equal, and think of them as an equal with you. That at least metaphorically gives you a team, a group, a universal tribe, a universal tribe. Okay, so um, compassion, and then there's enlightened self-interest. Enlightened self-interest means that sometimes you're going to feel good, or no, when you do things for other people, you're going to reap benefits, right? So it's like transactional, right? So the first time I heard about this is when people were talking about treating people with antisocial personality disorder. If they want to get what they want and they have some ability to think, because not all people with enlightened self-interest are clever. Some of them are profoundly dull. They can't conceive of strategies to really get what they want in life because they don't understand other people. So they can't really use people as tools except for quick jollies and immediate gratification, but they can't figure out how to use them for like longer term good. And then you might say, well, why would you want them to learn that? Well, you're right. That could backfire. They could plan long term schemes that hurt people ultimately. But in reality, many of the people who nobody said, I want to be born, as an antisocial personality disorder that wants to take advantage of people. What basically everybody wants is to feel good, right? So if you teach them how to feel good by working better with other people, that can show some progress. But you're not someone with, you might be if you're listening, but you're not someone with antisocial personality disorder. You're in that way, you're more normal. You're more in the average. You have, what I have. Sometimes you get mad at people, sometimes you hate people, sometimes you love people, sometimes you might even have plots and schemes in your mind, and sometimes your morality tells you no, don't have plots and schemes in your mind. So enlightened self-interest can work for normal people too, of course. And normal, yeah, I'm going to use the word normal people. Um, you can use. So here's the thing. Enlightened self-interest is probably why group species survive. We automatically do a lot of things that keep us going and keep us protecting the group and the group protecting us, and that allows for that's why group species survive, and we have these little quirks. One of the quirks being the capacity for compassion. right? So do unto others, and maybe you'll get a chance that they'll do such things unto you. Um, that people can get very spiritual about this and say, put it out into the universe and it'll be like good. But what I'm saying is, yeah, that's transactional too. When they put something out into the universe and it'll come back to you, that is just a metaphor for the transaction of the more you do for people, the more likely that that you'll be able to be good at negotiating, bargaining, making fair deals with people. It's very simple, very down to earth, very concrete type of stuff. There's another reason. Oh yeah, because you might feel good about it. That is where compassion comes in. Okay, so you've got compassion and enlightened self-interest. They're related, but they're not the same. Compassion is really you want people to feel good. You want that little baby to be fed. You want that dog that's walking on the street to have someone to love them. You want those trees to not be brown and falling apart. You want them to flourish. So you have emotional interest. You have constantly producing emotions, and you have this basically because emotions can be painful or pleasurable. You have a need for kind of the pleasurable ones, and also those bittersweet ones that come when you do something that seems profoundly meaningful to you. In fact, I feel like a little soft and sort of peepy right now as I say that. Like I feel like welling up, the feeling of like just by talking about it. So I think that's enough for compassion, enlightened self-interest. And I want to make this video shorter than just this first section implies that I just did. You're safer because you get the goodwill of others. So if you do things for the community, you're less likely to get arrested. You're more likely to get people doing good things for you. That might backfire on you, but don't be a doormat, right? Fewer desperate people turning into violence in your community. If you are compassionate and more people are compassionate and people are clever at being compassionate and people organize in compassionate ways, they make everybody happier, which makes everybody a lot less desperate, angry, and impulsive, which means that just in general, your community is going to be safer. Everybody's going to be safer. If you think about people pulling crimes out there, a lot of them are doing it for camaraderie, which they're missing, or for just material gain, which they're having trouble getting in other ways. And so when you start to boost people up, um, desperate people don't think very clearly. So when you boost people up and they get to a point where they can relax a little bit, their brain starts working better and they can be more clever at conceiving smart and benevolent ways to make a living and all that stuff. Okay, so we're gonna go and I told you you can get a warm feeling. We already talked about that. A healthier economy for you and everyone. So that's kind of a macro thing. If enough people understand the ideas of your compassion is telling you something, when you feel bad for a person, can you do something about it? If you can, maybe you'll try. If not, you'll put warm thoughts in your mind for them. And I'm not sure if that does any good for them, but it might for you. It also might cognitively put the seed in, your like unconscious processing of cleverer ways down the future. Like when you study something for school and you don't think you're learning the material, and then you go take the test and suddenly you realize you you're acing the test. Well, you realize it when you get the grade back because you don't even know after you've taken the test. Well, that's kind of like if you're doing warm feelings, sometimes that's a cognitive process of putting something in, like putting a seed in the ground and then coming back later to see if it flowers into a really clever idea, right? So, a healthier economy for you and everyone is something that is more done en masse in a group process, like a small group you create, friends, family, your municipal community, like your city or township or town, your state, your county, all the way up to your region, your nation, and then possibly international cooperation for the benefit of people who are having the most trouble in this world. Um, uh, So you make better plans and schemes. Yeah. So compassion, enlightened self-interest, and benevolent actions takes a lot of mental work. It takes a lot. It gives you a lot of mental exercise, and there's a lot of failure, in my view. In my experience, even trying to do good, I think I just don't know if I did good. But also, I'm not always that resourced. I don't have all the money in the world. I'm not an organizational specialist that knows how to build a philanthropic organization and all that kind of stuff. But let me just leave it at that. You might make better plans and schemes because I think I do. I think I become a little bit more smart. I think I become a little bit more curious. I become more interested in reading things that I would have never read before. And those things have kept my brain alive. And it's like being at a playground. You know what I mean? So I'm selfish in that way. I like that interplay of like new thoughts and like learning to believe things I didn't believe and learning to disbelieve things I did believe. And every once in a while, I mean, it's not that common, but you get an aha moment and that's just a nice feeling. So, all right. So, the other one is you resolve conflict better when you have compassion because compassion is partly cognitive. All emotions are partly cognitive. My best definition of emotions is actual sensory experiences in your body